My name is Irenosen Okojie. I'm a writer and arts project manager. I'm based in the UK, in London, but I spent some time in Nigeria. I was here till I was 8 before moving there. I've written a novel called Butterfly Fish, which is literary fiction and partly set in London, modern London, 50s Nigeria and 19th century Benin, the Kingdom of Benin. And really it's about a lot of things. It's about identity, it's about coping with trauma, but it's also about inheritance and history and taking ownership of our histories. The book just came out in July and it's had a really good reception, so I'm so excited to have brought it to Ake, which has been wonderful. So yeah, the short stories I started writing kind of around the same time of the novel. I started writing it when I was having a difficult period with the novel, and I fell in love with short stories and the short form because I thought, how fantastic, they really suit the kind of fast-paced life that we live, yet you're still getting that fix that literary, fix that you need. So my short stories are really about characters who you don't normally see stuff written about. They're about people unraveling. That's something I'm fascinated with because I'm really interested in how people cope when they unravel, like the psychology behind it. And they're about people on the fringes, and they're quite strange and quite weird, just because I'm interested in weird stuff and weird shit. So my stories are really, some of them are quite fucked up and some of them are funny, but hopefully there's that thread and that curiosity and just that lens that I have, and I think it's personal to each writer, of how you look at the world. So what I do with my short stories is kind of create another world, but hopefully introduce people to characters they don't normally think about. That's what I try to do. I think great writing should cause a shift and a reaction and a response, basically. And that's what I hope to do with my work. I met up with a fellow writer friend of mine in London a couple of weeks back, and she just read the book. And her response to the book was, my God, this book is so strange. I've never come across an African female protagonist like this, who does some really messed up stuff, has dark sex, is kind of going a bit mad, and is kind of grappling with the loss of her mother. So for me, that was good because that sparked an interesting conversation and an interesting dialogue about mental health issues, about how we cope when we're going through dark times and dark things, and we shouldn't shy away from that. So there's a lot of darkness in my work, and when people meet me, they're like, oh my God, you're so lovely, I can't believe you wrote that, which is interesting. So for me, there's that space and there's that gap, and I want to provoke people, I want to provoke interesting conversation, and that's what I hope to do with my work. If somebody reads something and they're just like, oh, that was nice, for me, you're not really doing your job as a writer. It has to affect people, I think. Either make them laugh, make them cry, make them question how they approach things or how they see things, but there should be some sort of emotional response, I think. I mean, Nigeria's always had a amazing heritage of literary works, but I think it's incredibly exciting at the moment because there's such diversity coming up within Nigeria as well, and people from Nigeria within the diaspora. So you have people like Igoni Barrett, who's written The Inventive Black Ass. You have people like Helen Habila, who's another great writer who's started Cordite Books, which is looking at like crime fiction, and you have a guy like Obinna Demwe, who's just written Satans and Chaitans, which is a crime fiction novel, and I think it's Cassava Republic that have a new imprint on romance, which I think is amazing because we need more popular African fiction. We have an amazing history of literary fiction, which is respected all around the world, and rightly so. But I'm really interested in reading stuff that's very different to the kind of stuff I write. And I think in order for us to have even more of a presence, we need to have those everyday stories out there. So I think it's an exciting time, and I'm curious to see what else is coming up. One book chat about my novel, which was amazing, and I've sold quite a few books, which is always great. But it's just been very interesting being around other writers and learning from them and learning about how they approach their work, because it's a very insular thing, and often you're locked away, you do the writing, you get on with it. So there's something special, I think, and powerful about being around other creatives in Africa at this time. My novel came out in July, and I never imagined that I would be here. So for me, it's an amazing experience. Today, I went to the book chat with Mona Elthaway and Pius on revolution, which blew my mind. And it was just very interesting. You have Pius coming from a satirical angle, and Mona being kind of more revolutionary and using her anger as a disruption. And I thought that was really interesting, and the gap between the two was fascinating to explore and to hear their different approaches. So that's been great. And this evening I went to a discussion about like crime fiction and the different genres within African fiction that are emerging. So I think Ake is hugely important. It has a great reputation abroad, and having experienced it now, I think it's a wonderful thing, and I definitely want to come back again. So I hope I get invited again.